Have you ever noticed that the more you try to stay on a man's mind, the less he seems to feel your absence? That's not because you're not enough. It's because people rarely miss what is always available. In this video, we're talking about how to make a man miss you deeply, not by playing games, not by pretending you don't care, and definitely not by chasing him harder. We're talking about the kind of energy that makes someone pause, think about you, and feel the space you leave behind. Because here's the truth. A man doesn't miss constant effort. He misses emotional impact. He misses the woman who brings peace, depth, confidence, and a presence he can't easily replace. So if you've been wondering why he's distant, why pulling back feels so difficult, or how to make him value you without losing yourself in the process, stay with me. By the end of this video, you'll understand the shift that changes everything. And while you're watching, ask yourself this. Are you giving your energy to be chosen or becoming unforgettable? One of the biggest mistakes women make when they want a man's attention is this. They start over-giving. More texts, more checking in, more explaining, more trying to keep the connection alive, thinking that if they just show enough care, enough effort, enough consistency, he'll finally step up and value it. But usually, the opposite happens. The more you chase attention, the more you teach someone that your presence comes with no effort on their part. And when something feels constantly available, it often stops feeling special. That doesn't mean you should become cold, distant, or fake. It means attention should never come from anxiety. It should come from confidence. A lot of women don't even realize they're doing this. It starts small. You're the one always starting the conversation. You're the one trying to fix the mood. You're the one making excuses for his inconsistency. And little by little, instead of being enjoyed, your energy starts being expected. That's where attraction can quietly weaken. Because real attention isn't won by convincing someone to notice you. It's created when your energy has value, your presence feels meaningful, and your absence can actually be felt. If you have to constantly remind someone that you're there, they're not experiencing you. They're consuming your effort. And that's the shift. Stop focusing on how to get more attention from him and start focusing on becoming a woman who doesn't have to compete for it. The moment your energy is no longer chasing validation, it becomes magnetic. So ask yourself honestly, are you expressing interest or are you performing for attention? Because those two things may look similar, but they create completely different results. When you stop chasing, something important happens in his mind. The pattern changes. If he's used to you always reaching out first, always keeping the conversation going, always making yourself emotionally available, your silence creates contrast, and contrast gets attention. A lot of men don't fully process a woman's value when her presence feels guaranteed. Not because they're cruel, but because certainty can make people passive. When they don't have to wonder about losing your attention, they often stop paying close attention to it. But when you pull your energy back with calm confidence, he has space to feel the difference. He starts noticing what you brought, your warmth, your consistency, your emotional presence. And if the connection meant something to him, that absence can stir curiosity, reflection, and even desire. Now, this isn't about manipulation. It's about ending the cycle where you do all the emotional work. Chasing keeps him in a passive position. Stepping back invites him to show who he really is. That's the key. When you stop chasing, you stop interrupting his chance to pursue, to think, and to miss you. And sometimes the silence reveals everything. Not just how he feels about you, but how little you should have been over-giving in the first place. Over-contact lowers attraction because it removes the emotional space that allows desire to grow. When someone hears from you all day, every day, with no pause, no mystery, and no room to wonder, the connection can start to feel predictable instead of exciting. Attraction needs balance. It needs presence, but it also needs space. It needs warmth, but it also needs anticipation. When you're constantly texting, checking in, double messaging, or finding reasons to stay on his radar, you may think you're strengthening the bond, but sometimes you're actually crowding it. And here's what many women don't realize. Too much contact can shift your energy from confident to emotionally dependent. Even if your words sound casual, your constant availability can send a deeper message. I need your attention to feel secure. That pressure can be felt, even when it's unspoken. When a man doesn't have the chance to wonder about you, miss you, or notice your absence, his emotions don't have room to deepen. He stays in the habit of receiving you, not discovering you. And discovery is a huge part of attraction. This doesn't mean you should disappear, act cold, or pretend not to care. It means you stop forcing connection. You stop using contact as a way to hold his attention. Real attraction grows when both people have room to lean in naturally. If every quiet moment makes you want to fill the silence, ask yourself why. Are you connecting because it feels good, or because you're afraid distance will make him forget you? Because the truth is, the right connection doesn't fade when you give it breathing room. It often becomes clearer. And sometimes, the less you push for attention, the more unforgettable your energy becomes. Emotional space and silence are powerful because they reveal what constant closeness often hides. When you stop filling every gap with a text, a reaction, or an attempt to keep his attention, you give the connection room to breathe. And in that breathing room, feelings become clearer. A lot of women are taught to believe that staying present all the time keeps a man interested. But often it's the opposite. When your energy is always available, he has no reason to pause and reflect on what you bring into his life. Silence changes that. Silence creates contrast. It allows your absence to speak where your effort once did all the work. And the beautiful thing is, silence is not weakness. It is not punishment. It is not a game. It is self-control. It is emotional maturity. It is knowing that you do not have to constantly prove your value to be felt. When you create emotional space, a man has the opportunity to wonder about you, to notice the shift, to think about your voice, your presence, your warmth, and the way you made him feel. That's when missing you becomes real. Not because you forced it, but because you stopped interrupting the natural process. Silence also protects you. It gives you clarity. Instead of getting caught in the cycle of overgiving, overthinking, and overreaching, you get to step back and observe. Who reaches out? Who makes an effort? Who notices your absence? Who only responds when everything is easy? That's why emotional space is so powerful. It doesn't just make him more aware of you, it makes you more aware of the truth. Sometimes the strongest thing a woman can do is stop talking long enough to see who values her without being reminded. Raising your value is not about becoming harder to reach, acting cold, or pretending you don't care. Real value is not created through confusion. It is created through self-respect, emotional stability, and knowing that your attention is something meaningful, not something you hand out just to keep someone interested. A lot of women think they need to play games to seem more desirable. Reply later on purpose, act distant, make him jealous, pretend to be busy. But forced behavior is easy to feel. And when your actions are driven by strategy instead of authenticity, the connection starts to lose depth. The truth is, your value rises naturally when you stop revolving your life around his reactions. When you have standards, when you don't over-explain your worth, when your happiness, your routine, and your peace are not constantly dependent on whether he texts, calls, or gives you attention that day. High-value energy is calm. It doesn't beg to be chosen. It doesn't chase clarity from someone who is being inconsistent. It doesn't shrink, overperform, or compete for affection. It simply knows, if I am treated well, I stay. If not, I step back. And that mindset changes everything. Because a man feels the difference between a woman who is trying to secure his interest and a woman who genuinely values herself. One feels pressured, the other feels rare. So if you want to raise your value, focus less on controlling his attention and more on deepening your own life. Protect your energy, keep your standards, speak with warmth, but don't abandon yourself to be desired. That is what makes you magnetic. Not the game, not the chase, not the performance. Just the quiet power of a woman who knows she is valuable, whether anyone validates it or not. What makes you unforgettable in his mind is not just your beauty, your attention, or how available you were. It's how you made him feel. Long after conversations fade and routines change, people remember emotional impact. They remember the energy that felt different, the presence that felt grounding, the connection that stayed with them when everything else started to blur. A woman becomes unforgettable when she brings something deeper than surface attraction. It could be the way she listens without trying to control, the way she carries herself with quiet confidence, the way she makes a moment feel warm, calm, exciting, or real. Men may notice looks first, but what stays in their mind is the woman whose energy touched something deeper. And here's what many people get wrong. Being unforgettable is not about trying too hard to impress. It's not about performing perfection, always saying the right thing, or becoming whoever you think he wants. In fact, that usually has the opposite effect. What stays in someone's mind is authenticity. A woman who is present, a woman who has depth, a woman who is comfortable in her own skin. It's also the contrast you create. When your energy feels peaceful in a world full of pressure, memorable in a world full of noise, and genuine in a world full of games, that leaves a mark. He remembers the woman who felt rare. So if you want to stay on his mind, focus less on being impossible to forget and more on being deeply real. Be the woman whose presence adds value, whose absence creates reflection, and whose energy cannot be replaced by constant attention from someone else. That is what makes you unforgettable. Confidence and feminine energy make him lean in, because they create a feeling he cannot force, buy, or easily replace. A confident woman does not chase connection from a place of fear. She does not beg to be chosen, over-explain her worth, or shape-shift to keep someone interested. She knows who she is, and that certainty changes the entire dynamic. When a woman is confident, her energy feels steady. She is warm without being desperate, open without being needy, interested without losing herself. That balance is incredibly attractive because it makes a man feel that being close to her is a privilege, not something he can take for granted. And feminine energy adds another layer to that. It is not weakness, it is presence. It is softness with standards. It is emotional depth, grace, receptivity, and self-respect all at once. It allows a woman to connect without forcing, to express without chasing, and to remain grounded even when emotions are involved. This kind of energy naturally invites pursuit. Why? Because it gives a man space to step forward. It does not dominate the connection, control every moment, or fill every silence. Instead, it creates a calm magnetism that makes him want to come closer on his own. What often pushes men away is not a woman caring. It is when care becomes pressure, urgency, or emotional overreaching. But confidence and feminine energy feel different. They say, I like you, but I am still centered in myself. And that is powerful. Because when a man feels that your attention is intentional, your presence is peaceful, and your energy is rooted in self-worth, he starts leaning in naturally. Not because you convinced him to, but because your energy made him want to. If you're always texting first, the real question is not just what should you do instead, it's why do you feel the need to keep the connection alive by yourself? Because the habit of always reaching out usually comes from anxiety, not alignment. You text first to check the vibe, to feel reassured, to avoid silence, or to make sure he doesn't drift away. But when that becomes the pattern, you end up carrying the connection instead of experiencing it. So what should you do instead? First, pause. Let there be space. Not as a tactic, but as information. Space shows you whether he thinks of you on his own. It shows you whether he has genuine interest or whether he has simply grown comfortable receiving your effort. Second, redirect your energy. Instead of staring at your phone, go back to your own life. Focus on your routine, your goals, your peace, your friendships, your body, your joy. A woman becomes more attractive when her energy is not trapped in waiting. When your life feels full, you stop texting out of boredom or emotional panic. Third, observe the pattern honestly. If he only talks when you start the conversation, that tells you something. If he responds warmly but never initiates, that tells you something too. And if he reaches out when you step back, now you're seeing the connection more clearly. Most importantly, stop using texting as proof of your value. You do not need to keep reminding someone that you exist to stay meaningful to them. If the interest is real, effort will meet effort. So instead of always texting first, create room for reciprocity. Let him show you who he is without your constant prompting. That's not losing control. That's gaining clarity. Sometimes chasing doesn't look obvious. It's not always dramatic. It's not always constant calling or sending paragraph texts. Sometimes it's much quieter than that. It looks like always being the one to reach out first, always checking if the energy changed, always trying to keep the conversation interesting so he doesn't lose interest. And without realizing it, you slowly become the one carrying the connection. One clear sign you're chasing too much is that his response affects your mood more than it should. If one delayed text can ruin your peace, if one short reply makes you question yourself, or if you keep rereading conversations trying to decode what went wrong, your energy is no longer grounded, it's attached. Another sign is over-explaining. You feel the need to justify your feelings, explain your value, or keep proving that you're worth consistency. But the truth is, the right person does not need to be convinced to treat you well. You may also be chasing if you keep giving him the benefit of the doubt while ignoring the pattern. He's inconsistent, but you excuse it. He does the bare minimum, but you focus on his potential. He gives just enough attention to keep you hopeful, and you do the rest by filling in the blanks. And then there's this sign. You feel exhausted. Not excited, not secure, just emotionally tired from trying to hold something together. That's when you need to pause and ask yourself an honest question. Am I being pursued too? Or am I doing all the emotional work alone? Because real connection should not feel like constant maintenance. If you are always the one pushing the bond forward, that is not flow. That is chasing. And the moment you see it clearly is the moment you can stop. If you want a man to come closer naturally, the goal is not to control his feelings, is to create the kind of connection that invites real effort. Healthy attraction grows when there is warmth, emotional safety, respect, and space for both people to choose each other freely. The first step is to stop over-functioning in the connection. You do not need to carry every conversation, fix every silence, or constantly prove how caring you are. When you do too much, you leave no room for him to step in. Pulling back from overgiving is not rejection. It is balance. It allows him to meet you halfway. Second, stay open but grounded. A lot of women think they have to become distant to be desired, but healthy closeness does not come from being cold. It comes from being receptive without being overly available. You can be kind, warm, and interested while still protecting your peace. That balance makes your energy feel safe, not heavy. Third, let your life remain full. Men naturally lean toward women who are connected to themselves. When your joy, purpose, routine, and confidence are intact, your energy feels magnetic. You are no longer sitting around waiting to be chosen. You are living, growing, and inviting someone to be part of an already meaningful life. Another healthy way to draw him closer is through emotional consistency. Not pressure, not hot and cold behavior, not games. Consistency builds trust, and trust makes a man feel comfortable investing more. When he sees that your energy is genuine and calm, he feels less resistance and more desire to come forward. It also matters that you stop chasing answers and start observing actions. Give him the space to show interest on his own. Let him initiate sometimes. Let him follow through. Let him reveal whether he is truly emotionally available. Attraction becomes stronger when it is mutual, not forced. And finally, remember this. People come closer when they feel good around you, but they stay close when they respect you. So keep your standards. Speak clearly. Don't abandon your needs just to keep someone around. The right man doesn't feel pushed away by a woman with self-respect. He feels inspired to rise. That is the healthiest way to make him come closer naturally. Not by chasing him, not by convincing him, but by becoming so centered, warm, and self-valuing that closeness with you feels real, easy, and worth pursuing. At the end of the day, making a man miss you deeply is not about disappearing to punish him, acting distant to gain power, or turning love into a strategy. It's about understanding something many women learn too late. When you are always over-available, over-explaining, and over-giving, there is no space for your value to be fully felt. Absence works when it is honest, when it comes from self-respect, not resentment. When you step back, not to manipulate his emotions, but to return to yourself, that is what changes everything. Because the moment you stop chasing, stop forcing, and stop trying to hold the connection together alone, you begin to see the truth more clearly. If he values you, he will feel the shift. He will notice your silence. He will notice your energy is no longer reaching for him in the same way. And if the connection is real, that space can awaken reflection, effort, and deeper appreciation. But this is the part that matters most. Your absence should never be about making someone choose you. It should be about choosing yourself enough to stop begging for what should come naturally. Let him feel your absence the right way, through your peace, your standards, your calm withdrawal from anything one-sided, and your decision to no longer overextend for inconsistent love. Because when your energy is no longer available on demand, it becomes more meaningful, more noticeable, more respected. And whether he comes closer or not, you still win because you return to your center. And a woman who is centered in herself becomes unforgettable, not because she chased attention, but because she stopped giving her power away. If this video spoke to you, let me know in the comments. Have you ever realized you were chasing without noticing it? And if you want more videos on feminine energy, self-worth, dating, and relationship psychology, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next one.